Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullah. So we continue reading from the 40 principles, 40 fundamentals of the religion, Al-Arba fi Usul Din by Imam Al-Ghazali rahmahullah. Wa nafa'ana bi'ilmihi fid darain. And this principle, about on stinginess and the love of wealth, we have reached the following subtitle: the reality of wealth in respect of blame and praise. في بيان حقيقة المال من حيث الذم والمدح. Know that wealth is not blameworthy from every aspect. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "How excellent is the useful wealth of a righteous man." I would first of all, it's not a hadith at all. Second, inshallah, the meaning is beautiful and it's sound, inshallah, the meaning. Now the translation, because the text says نعم المال الصالح الصالح twice للرجل الصالح الصالح الصالح. Salih, righteous man, good man, but always in terms of from within the Islamic, worldview. And useful wealth. How about good, wholesome wealth, like it has been acquired from a legitimate source, that you have paid the zakah of the money, etc. At any rate, it's not a hadith. How could it be absolutely blameworthy when the slave is a traveler to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Being a traveler, and how about this to being a traveler? The world is one stop along his journey. And his body is his vehicle, without which it is impossible for him to travel. Okay. First of all, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he described this life as like a man who he was traveling and sat in the shade of a tree. كرجل استظل تحت ظل شجرة. I'm simply extracting this phrase from the hadith. كرجل استظل تحت ظل شجرة ثم راح وتركها. So just simply this life, you took basically almost like sitting in the shade of a tree, and then that's it. This is really life. This is life. Sometimes I think of this life as a U-turn. What's this U-turn? We began in the garden, the story of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. He was expelled. He and Eve were expelled. That's the beginning of humanity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to go back to paradise. You have instructions, revelation. And this U-turn is this life. Of course, some people might choose a different exit, still has to make this U-turn. But at the very end of traveling, there is one exit that says paradise. There is one exit that says hell. Waliyadu billah. Simply to say that this is really at Al-Aqsa Mosque yesterday. We prayed the noon prayer, And usually before this the before this the events that unfolded during the last few days, we used to have usually hundreds of people coming from different parts of the world, including from cities far from Jerusalem, and they used to pray the Asr along with the noon prayer. Like we will be done with the noon prayer, then they will join it, shortened because of they are traveling, and there will be a second call for the prayer, not on the loudspeakers, because this is really about the people who are praying. Otherwise, people will internally inside the buildings at Al-Aqsa Mosque, so people could hear it, and maybe part of the courtyards. So yesterday, somebody said something like whether there is such a prayer is going to take place, because practically people cannot come. People are turned away from Al-Aqsa Mosque also. That's another aspect. Not only youngsters, really. I know of someone who was 71 years old who was turned away, but he just went to a different gate and he made it inside. And people, I expect that people also tomorrow, Friday, youngsters like people below 50 probably, they will not be allowed at Al-Aqsa Mosque. At noon exactly, I could hear the bells of the churches in Jerusalem inside the old city, and also in the vicinity, like the foot of at the foot of Mount of Olives. So it was 12 sharp, and I took pictures, and I took the pictures precisely because the mosque was empty. At any rate, the whole thing, I mentioned it because when someone asked about travelers, someone else commented by saying, "Aren't we all travelers?" So somebody asked whether there are travelers who would like to pray the afternoon prayer, and somebody else said, "Aren't we all travelers?" So the first one was speaking about covering distances, relatively speaking, long distance, not you know. And the comment was about traveling to the hereafter, that ultimately people are here temporarily. And I think it's important to realize one's path, that the nature of this life, whether you have wealth or you don't have wealth, in both cases, it is temporary. If your wealth is wholesome or not, it is haram. This life is temporary, so you might as well just make it halal, inshallah. So how could it be absolutely blameworthy when of course, when he said, let me just catch up. So he said the world is a field for cultivating the afterlife. الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة. It's the meaning is correct. The chain of narrators is problematic. الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة. I think the meaning is absolutely correct. You plant here and you'll harvest there. Whatever you plant here, you are going to harvest it. You plant something good and you'll harvest something good. You plant something, unacceptable, blameworthy, haram, and you'll harvest the sayyat. So somebody will harvest the hasanat and somebody else will harvest the sayyat. How could it be? How could it be absolutely blameworthy when the slave is a traveler to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The world is one stop along his journey, and his body in his vehicle is his vehicle, without which it is impossible for him to travel. I cannot survive without food and clothing. And there is no way to them except through wealth. Okay, clothing. Probably at one point, you might be able to survive without clothing if you are somewhere where the temperature is moderate. It does not get extremely cold, but it's food that you cannot survive without drink, without food. And the right now there is no food and no water and no electricity going to the 2.2, 2.3, 2.5 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. It's a very sad story. When Russia did what it did to Ukraine, from the European Union made statements that this is really an act of terror. But of course, once it comes to the Palestinians or probably the third world at large, it becomes acceptable double standard at best. So you could survive, but you wear clothing. So if the temperature is identical with your body temperature, you wear clothing because of the aura, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would like us to cover. Unlike those who try to brandish their body parts, part of it, much of it, all of it, online or even in reality. So virtually or in reality, such as the nudity beaches or nudity parks. Like in Paris, you have there is one in Berlin. There is in Berlin. You have in Australia the beaches, but I'm talking about parks. In Berlin, you have a public park where people they undress. In Paris, there is people could basically also undress totally, but women cannot wear abaya. How ironic! How ironic when a state targets just like these young Muslim women in the land of the fraternité, égalité, liberté. That's not, it does nothing. It's not inclusive, really. However, anyone who understands the benefit of wealth, knowing that is a tool for feeding the beast of burden in order to traverse the path, never turns his attention toward it, nor does he take from it anything besides the amount he needs for the journey. If he limits himself to that, he is happy with it. As the Prophet ﷺ said to Aisha radiallahu anha, if you want to meet up with me, then be content with the traveler's provision for the world, and do not get a new garment or discard an old one until you wear holes in it. Now, it's a very weak tradition. It's a very weak tradition. And even the translation of wearing holes in it, where really it's about patching it, literally, but still it is a very weak tradition. ولا تخلعي قميصا حتى ترقعيه. It's ضعيف جدا. And the next one is muttafaq alayh, narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma ja'al quta ali Muhammadin kafafa. He ﷺ said, Oh Allah, make the food of Muhammad's family only what they need to subsist. That's muttafaq alayh. Yes. And that would be really, I would say, a challenge compared to a life of consumerism, if you will. On the other hand, if a person exceeds the sufficient amount, he is destroyed. As he ﷺ said, whoever takes from the world above what suffices him has taken his death and is destroyed without even feeling it. We have read this before. Okay. Yes. So if the hadith that is really a sound tradition about this, that one should not be enslaved really by the wealth. Ta'isa abdu dinar, and we have read this yesterday. Okay. فالزيادة على قدر الكفاية مهلكة من 3 أوجه. So but we will okay. So on the other hand, if a person exceeds a sufficient amount, he is destroyed. It cannot be because you cannot really quantify it. And there were those who would wear something nice. The one companion asked the Prophet ﷺ that someone would like his clothing to be nice, his shoes to be nice. But that was not the problem. I think so. The problem is attachment. You could have more, and you could and principally cannot be attached to it, and you will have less, and you'll be attached to it. Likewise is the traveler. If he takes more than what he needs for the road, he will die under its weight and never reach the destination of his travel. Adding to the sufficient amount is a destructive thing from 3 perspectives. So here Imam Al-Ghazali, of course, there is a limit to what you can carry. There is a certain amount that each aeroplane, each train, each bus, each animal, there is a limit to what they can carry. And sometimes when aeroplanes fly low, like when it's snowing, a combination probably of sleet and snow and icing and what could be basically the case. There were cases where the airplane fell. It did not reach its destination, and it was destructive because of you might say, the very little extra weight. So they do have that. In the old days, they used to have an engineer flying with the like these tri-stars, where the engineer would calculate the weight, the speed, and all these things. But of course, the issue is the whether this will bring you down under its weight. It will destroy you. It will basically keep you from reaching your destination. If it's too much, you might not even be able to do the minimum necessary for reaching your proper desired destination. So the three things, the adding to the sufficient amount is a destructive thing from three perspectives. One of them is that it goes to acts of disobedience and puts one in a position to commit them. Whereas it is from divine protection that one is unable to commit a sin. The trial of it could be the distance, it could be the whatever is the case, it could be biological, it could be physiological, it could be financial, it could be whatever the circumstance that would prevent you. That's really divine protection. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. And we make the dua بما تحفظ به عبادك الصالحين. To ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us with that which with which He protects the good the good people. The trial of ease is greater than the trial of hardship, and having patience when one is able is much more difficult than when one is unable. The second is that it goes to indulging in permissible things. At least, Imam Al-Ghazali says, التنعم, indulging, التنعم. Then a person's body grows out of indulgence, so that he is incapable of forbearing without it. It's just like now this issue is about getting used to indulgence. If the kids are never exposed to any hardship, that is really wrong. Hardship, I'm not really making life difficult for them. Just like let's say that every now and then there will be no hot meal, because that's not the case. There are those who will not have hot meal in a very, very long time. Let's remember that 1 billion people on earth are without fresh water, 1 billion people without sanitation, within 1 billion people who subsist on they used to say $1, now they make it $1.25. Doesn't make much difference really. The idea is that they do not have enough. Many people hardly have one meal a day, and they suffer from malnutrition. And the idea is not to complain about food. That's the issue. Every time, when we remember that at one point, Sayyidah Aisha, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with her, she said that at one point there would be 2 months in a row when they would not ignite fire to cook, because there was nothing to cook, and they subsisted on water and dates, except that every now and then somebody from the indigenous people of Medina, the Ansar, would send a gift of milk to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 2 months without cooking food. And some husband might make, when they go home, they don't find cooked food, they might make a very big issue out of it. If there is, enjoy it, Bismillah. If there isn't, just also. The Prophet ﷺ used sometimes simply to continue fasting when he would not find anything to eat. That's in the not in Ramadan, of course. I mean, he would, be with the pray Fajr with the companions, teach them, stay there in the mosque, and until they attend sunrise. And when he goes home, he will not find something to eat. He continues that day fasting. You could do this in voluntary in the fasting. In the and during Ramadan, you need to have the intention for fasting from the night before. This is the at least the Shafi'i school. The second, so we said about the second is that it goes to indulging in permissible things. At least this paragraph ends with the hadith: love of the world is the head of every transgression. The hadith is daif, and some people said that even it is forged, mawdu', and it has been attributed to several people. Let me just mention one, Bayhaqi in Shu'ab. He attributed this to Al-Hasan al-Basri. And there are those who attributed him to Ali bin Abi Talib, and doesn't make much difference. It's not a hadith. حب الدنيا رأس كل خطيئة. The third is that it distracts from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the basis of happiness in the afterlife. There's nothing like dhikr. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us. Imam Al-Ghazali would divide the time after Fajr, for example, would divide the time after Fajr into 4 parts. And after Fajr is not only time for dhikr, but throughout the day, throughout the night, whenever you are capable. And 1 part for reciting the Quran after Fajr, 1 part for dhikr, 1 part for supplication, for dua, and 1 part for contemplation. In fact, when they speak about about the daily habits of successful people in the West, very successful in terms of the material world, and practically all of them would wake up very early in the morning, but they speak about meditation, as they call it, not necessarily a religious act. And they go to the gym very early in the morning. So they start very early, and they have part of it which is really mindfulness, meditation. Look at Imam Al-Ghazali. He divided the time beautifully. Yes. And as I said, I say that, for example, you could be working as a delivery person. Fine. Alhamdulillah. As long as delivery is something, it's halal, and that's fine. And if you are a delivery person, then you are at stoplights every now and then. I mean, every now and then. In fact, frequently. If you are working a shift during the day or a shift during the evening, when you are at a stop sign, just don't really consume your heart and be irritated and be nervous and just simply be apprehensive about when will the red light become green. During this time, you might have 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 1 minute, depends. Just simply try to remember to mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will you will not care really about when the light turns green. That's fine. But during this period, you are really making dhikr. I'm just simply mentioning one example, like one can add 1001 possibilities where people can squeeze. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf speaks about he mentions a story about someone's mother, I think in Mauritania, because he studied there, and the timing, let's say the timing for food, when will food be ready? We might say in half an hour, in 1 hour. I think her response would be quantified in terms of the length of reciting a chapter of the Quran, or making salah on the Prophet ﷺ, or making dhikr in any form, such and such a number. She would know how long it would take in terms of recitation, what have you. And that's something beautiful. That's something good, because it's normative for them. She doesn't need to speak in terms of minutes or hours. She speaks in terms of surahs and dhikr, and it is dhikr anyhow. So we'll just complete this paragraph, inshallah. So the third is that it distracts from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the basis of happiness in the afterlife, for it crowds the heart with the disputes of farmers, keeping account of partners, thinking of cautionary plans concerning them, planning how to increase wealth, how to first acquire it, preserve it, secondly, and thirdly, make use of it. All of this is from among those things that blacken the heart, preoccupy, remove its clarity, and distract it from remembrance. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Al-Hakum Takathur. The mutual seeking of gain has distracted you. That's it's about the wealth. So inshallah we will continue, but Imam Al-Ghazali says, Al-Hakum Takathur, to the end of the surah, as it is said in Arabic, إلى آخر السورة. And in fact, حتى زرتم المقابر, yes, people will continue on this path until they find themselves already dead. That's the meaning. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.